iron pills or something.
I don't know what else. They were in the recorder's office.
I was joking, we're gonna get her one of those little like things.
It's 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting of the Common Council to order. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Move next to roll call for Treasurer Goldrich.
Carolyn Pearson, present. Brian Garrison.
Present.
Richard Traeger.
Present.
Mike Shockley.
Present.
Dale Stewart.
Here.
The council has been presented with the minutes from the October 16th special meeting. I received no amendments to be made to this set of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further is there any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question to approve the minutes from the October 16th, 2017 special meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll move next to reports from officials, committees, boards, commissions, and departments. The council has received reports or minutes from those identified in the agenda. Would any councilor like to ask any question of a member of the executive branch regarding these reports or minutes? Hearing none, we'll move next to the area planning commission report. Councilman Seward.
The only thing that we really tackled that has anything to do with the city was, we discussed the Airbnb situation, and of course that's on our agenda for tonight. So that was the only real thing, like I said, that touched on the city that I can report.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any questions for the councilman? All right. You've been presented with the minutes of the last 3 community center meetings. Is there anything further to report from the committee, Councilman Shockley?
The only thing is that we've got the heap troughs up, we've got down south end, and hopefully this weekend, if we can get things tied down enough, and the young man will be able to do it, we're gonna work on putting the furnaces and the air conditioner in the building.
And there's an event fundraiser next week.
Yes, Thursday, I believe,
This week.
is Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
We have a fundraiser. It's a silent auction, which will be held in the building. There'll be light and stuff so people can see. And hopefully we're gonna have we'll have a couple of heaters set up where we have a little bit of heat in the building.
What time's that fundraiser on Thursday?
I think it's 6 to 8:30, I'm not too sure, but
I can't remember.
I believe it was from 6 to 8:30. I believe is what it was.
I was thinking it was 4 hours long because she
Yeah,
said
I
she
think
had
it's 4 to 8,
4 to 8.
I think.
Oh, okay.
Is there any,
That's Thursday.
yes, sir. Is there anything further to report from Community Center Committee?
No,
Any
not at
questions?
this time.
Oh,
No.
Mr. Watson?
Does he turn in a final bill, the guy that did the framing?
Gray Wolf?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
There's still money out there for him?
Yeah, there should be.
I mean, he had
The only
requested-
thing that's left for him is these retainings that we were holding.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that's it.
If possible, I'd like to read over that contract before we give him final money. Just like to read, make sure that he did everything that's in the contract, if that's possible. I think it's like $4,000 to come in, something like that.
No, his retainage is, you're only holding like less than 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think he's done, I just want to read the contract, make sure that it's all done before you cut the last check, if you wouldn't mind. But I think he would be turning his bill in, because I think he's done, as of last week.
I didn't think we got his final bill yet.
I haven't,
No,
but I mean, the last one he brought to you.
it's not on here.
Huh?
Mr. Watson, any questions for the Community Center Committee? We'll move next to proposed ordinance 2017-17, read by title alone. Ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 76, Schedule 5, handicap parking. You've been presented with 2 versions of this ordinance. So the church had requested moving their handicap parking spot. It's kind of north on that side of the road, to a little further south, but still north of the alley. And they asked if they could as well have another parking spot just north of that. So it'd be, I think, the 2 parking spots just north of the alley on the east side of the road of Indiana Street between Main and Franklin. Included in this proposed ordinance is also the handicap parking spot next to the fire station, on the east side of the fire station. They've already got the sign up, but we want to make sure our ordinance corresponds with the sign. Is there any discussion about whether or not to move the handicap parking spot, or whether or not to allow 2 handicap parking spots on Indiana Street?
Tell me again where they are on Indiana.
On the east side of the road, just north of the alley.
Both of them.
Yes, sir. And I tried to, you have a map in here, and I tried to print it off, and I think the size is too large. But that's what the ordinance should correspond to.
And then the one for the fire department is where now?
I've got it in here too. I think it's the 4th spot north of Main Street on the east side of the road.
On Union.
Yes. Yeah, 4th angle parking space north of Main Street on the east side of the road is Union.
Is that close to a ramp or something?
Yes, there's a depression in the sidewalk. So there's a handicap parking spot, and directly south of that is the area where nobody else can park. It's got the lines on it so that if you have a van, you can get out.
So the difference between the 2 ordinance, that one says Amendment A, the other one is just a plain. The only difference is there's 2 spaces in front of the church. Is that the only difference?
Yes, sir. So on Amendment B, it has 2 spaces in front of the church. Or Amendment A, I'm sorry, it's the second version. There any discussion as to whether to allow 2 on Indiana Street or just 1?
Well, they must have determined that it's necessary for their congregation, so I see nothing wrong with providing that, and unless the neighborhood has some rejection.
I live across the street, I don't care.
You've got the bank that has a parking lot right behind it, and then Mr. Dywert, just south of the church. Is that a motion to approve Amendment A, which includes the 2 parking spots on Indiana and the 1 on Union Street for the fire station?
Yeah, I would move that we approve ordinance 2017-17, amendment A.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, we'll open the floor up to debate and amendments. Is there a counselor who would like to have the floor? Why are you in favor or opposed to proposed ordinance 2017-17 Amendment A, or to offer amendments to it? Hearing none, I will call the question as to the passage of proposed ordinance 2017-17A on first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. I don't know if it's a time-sensitive matter for the church, but I'm guessing they would like it done sooner rather than later. Would the council entertain a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to allow for passage on the same day as introduction?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Aaron, you don't have a problem with any of this, do you? Everything's good with you? Okay. I would make that motion to suspend the rules.
We have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second, I'll call the question as to whether to suspend the rules of procedure to allow for passage on the same day as introduction. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to pass 2017-17 Amendment A on second reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second.
Second.
Trigger. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2017-17 Amendment A on third and final reading?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do you have any further discussion? I'll call the question as to the passage of ordinance 2017-17 Amendment A on third and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. We'll move on to proposed ordinance 2017-18, read by title alone. Ordinance designating Columbia Street as one way between Washington and Union Street. Councilman Seward, this was brought up at the community center meeting by you, so do you want to have the floor?
All I said, I did not recommend this. All I said was that I think that at some point after the center opens, we need to look at the situation. And I said that because of the fact of course, the increased traffic flow, but when you get to the east end of Columbia Street, it kind of funnels down. And I'm not so sure that's real wide enough for two vehicles. So I did not recommend this, and I don't have any, I don't think we should move forward with it until we see what the traffic flow and everything with the community center actually is. I think this is premature.
Do you have any further discussion?
Well, I agree with them that it narrows down there quite a bit, no matter which way. And when you come out, the track is right there. It's a hill, it's upward, so I think it's kind of dangerous there. I think we've got to think about it before we do anything.
Give us a chance to get it open and then look at the increased traffic flow and talk to the people around there and see what they think. You know, you've got a house right there on the corner of Columbia and Union Street, so you know, I wouldn't mind listening to what they have to say and kind of going from there. But like I said, I think this is premature to be fiddling with it tonight.
If that's the case, I could probably table it till January if the community center gets open at that time. Next item I've got on the agenda is ordinance 2017, proposed ordinance 2017-19, read by title alone. Ordinance repealing Delphi Code sections 30.25, 30.26, and 30.27 regarding the community room. The purpose of this is just to try to start cleaning up the language of the Delphi Code. The community room refers to the old Lions room, which is on that side of the upstairs. At some point between 1984 and now, there was offices built up there, there was storage built up there. When I was reading through the Delphi Code of Ordinances when I was first elected, I had no idea what it referred to, and since that time, we've had no request from the public to rent that room out. So I was hoping we can begin to start cleaning up the language of the Delphi Code by repealing this section regarding the community room. Do we have any discussion on this matter, any questions? Do we have a motion to pass proposed ordinance 2017-19 on first reading?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2017-19 on first reading.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question as to the passage of ordinance 2017-19 on first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. It's not time sensitive, so I'll bring it up for second reading at the next meeting. Next item I have is proposed resolution 2017-9, read by title alone, Indiana Broadband Ready Community. I saw that either Nashville or Brown County, Indiana recently got this designation from the state. And what it requires, I've identified in the resolution, which is a model resolution prepared by the state. So if we were to pass this resolution, we would submit it to, I believe it's Indiana IDC, or IEDC, excuse me, which would then declare Delphi as broadband ready. This doesn't do anything besides signal to fiber and broadband companies that the city of Delphi is ready for broadband. It doesn't guarantee that we would have broadband and fiber coming into the city of Delphi, but it markets the city of Delphi as a broadband ready community. And when I was on the website, I think I highlighted how many there were, maybe 12 or 13, I can't remember at this time. But it could be a good step to getting fast, reliable internet in our community.
So there's no cost involved.
There's no cost involved. No, what we would do is we pass a resolution, we submit it to the state with some other documents, and IEDC would declare as a broadband ready community.
This seems ridiculous. I mean, you're no more ready than you were yesterday, right?
Yeah, but now we said we're ready.
Now it's official.
Yes. I move that resolution 2017-9 be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
With a motion and a second, We'll open the floor to debates and amendments. Are there any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, I'll call the question as the passage of proposed resolution 2017-19 on first and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Move on to resolution 2017-10, read by title only, resolution clarifying requested language regarding Airbnb. I provided in the packet, not the recommendation of the APC. They didn't make a formal recommendation at this point. What they did is drafted language and submitted it to the city council for our review on whether or not we like the language and whether there's changes that should be made to that language. Debbie Lowe, the comment, also pulled my ear before this meeting in terms of the proposal produced by APC, or I guess reviewed by APC, once it's produced. Includes the language Airbnb, which is just one of many companies that offer brokerage services to rent out either a guest house or a guest room. I wasn't a big fan of the Airbnb language reviewed by the APC either. I found Tippecanoe counties, which was the first one I did a Google search and it pulled up. And they've got 3 different, I guess, definitions. So I gotta pull that out. But what it comes down to, so they've got 3 definitions: a transient guest house, transient guest rental, and transient guest room. A guest house is not owner occupied. I believe Bev Cease's property on North Street would fit into this category. Transient guest house is owner occupied, but the owner doesn't have to be there when the person is renting it out, but the owner resides there occasionally. And a transient guest room, which is the owner always lives there, and they rent a room out in their house. So Tyler Moses' property on East Main Street would fit under transient guest rental. There are probably occasions within the city where you have a transient guest room, but I don't think those are being advertised. Normally it's just, you know somebody and they stay in your garage or next to the room for a little bit of time. That's how Tippecanoe County defined it. Sorry. I think it's better, but I don't know if my proposal fits what the city council would desire in terms of where we want Airbnbs and other properties that use Airbnb or things like Airbnb within the city of Delphi. So what I've got proposed in version B and I'd have to look back. I'd have to look back at our zoning ordinance because I can't remember.
Want to make sure that they remain pretty consistent no matter what we do, to make sure that the language matches in both of them. Is it conflicting?
And I think we could add those definitions in.
Absolutely.
But then
Whatever.
so the question is whether to allow, a transient guest house in a U1 by right, so you wouldn't have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or whether we would want the property owner to have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Currently with bed and breakfast, with the ordinance that we have, if you have a bed and breakfast in a U1 district, the property owner has to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals before they can get that approved to be located there. And that's kind of the problem that we're running into. I know on North Street, there's a problem with off-street parking and who shares the driveway. On East Main Street, I don't know if they've been to the Board of Zoning Appeals at this point. So I guess the question is whether the council would, there's a lot of different questions. How do we define these? And would the council like to see Airbnbs in a certain district by right? Or would you like the property owner to have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I guess I don't see that this is a big regulatory issue, but I know that it's come about from the bed and breakfast hoopla that we. I guess I would sort of like to hear from from people in the community that have proposed to do this. I can't imagine, we're not close to an airport, so, it just doesn't seem like the Airbnb is kind of even the right name for it, but I know it's kind of the hot topic for now, but it seems premature to me. I guess I have some questions,
And
but
I guess, so Airbnb is an app or a website, and no matter where you go, whether it's close to an airport or not, it's just if people have homes or rooms for rent. So I've used the service once, traveling in northern Indiana. I know Tyler Mose has already received a good review on his property, and somebody stay there. I believe the band's Prairie Lake stayed up at Bev Cease's after Bacon Fest. So we have people staying in these establishments at this point. And I think everybody across the state is having a hard time defining them, and I know the Indiana General Assembly brought it up, and there was actually, I don't know if it was a House bill or a Senate bill that was proposed where it would limit the ability of local governments to regulate Airbnbs. And I talked to Senator Hirschman earlier today at the submarine thing, and he said, maybe another topic for next year's session. But at the same time, we have 2 Airbnbs that the Area Planning Commission considers out of compliance with the zoning code.
Well, being that I have a wife that's from out of town, we have a lot of people that come visit and stay, and it's hard to get them local lodging around close to us. So it's kind of benefited us a couple of times. I think it's a growing thing, and until we get hotels, it's something that can help people that come in if we have this opportunity for them to have a place to stay. I think it's a good idea. I'd like to see us move forward with it and whatever we've got to do to make it possible.
Is there any other discussion amongst the council?
I have a little problem with, I'm like Brian, I like for people to be able to come and, be in town and stuff. The only thing I say is that if a single family, we have a single family dwelling on bed and breakfast, that'll be 2,500 square feet. And for each additional family, you've got to add 500 square foot. Well, and that means that 3/4 of the houses, or half the houses in our town, would not qualify, because my home and every home up there where I live are just a shade over 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. So, I mean, somewhere along the line, you've got to figure out how many square feet according to this. I hear black and white says that it's gotta be 1,500 square foot for your bed and breakfast, see? And 500 square foot added on if there is 2 occupancies, see? So, my question is how big or how small, or are we going to grandfather in the places that are already in business?
I'm thinking both of those properties exceed 1,500 square feet.
But what about your properties that don't have the 1,500 that are already made bed and breakfasts?
Well, I think that's a good question to ask, and whether we should reduce that square footage
See,
requirement.
because are you gonna grandfather them in, or are you gonna require them to add on just so they can have a bed and breakfast? See, I mean, that,
Well, you really don't want somebody that's got a smaller place, got a little room on the back, and is trying to rent their little laundry room out to one person.
Well, I
So,
understand
mean,
that.
It should be
yeah, I understand that.
But I
you know.
don't think somebody that only had 2,500 square feet home would probably be renting out a room unless it was just one person, they had 2 bedrooms in there and just renting out the bedroom.
Well, we
I
have.
mean, not
people-
everybody would do it, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think you fall under that if you're not actually declaring yourself a bed and breakfast or. I mean, if you just, I don't know the difference between rentals that he has, and you do days or weeks or months, right? So I don't know the difference, what it is between his properties, and he doesn't call them Airbnbs. And what,
Yeah, the difference in the definition provided by APC would be that for an Airbnb or a property like that, you can't rent it for more than 30 days at a time. And the same with the language I provided, the transient guest house, guest room. I don't think I had that, or I don't think I had it in guest room, but guest house and guest rental. So it's the 30-day time frame, which even that could be up for debate by the city council.
Do you not have some guest houses?
Do you rent them for more than 30 days at a time?
Depends what's needed, rent them all the way from 1 day to a year, depends. Rent a lot of contractors are working down.
But you allow for more than 30 days, so
Yes.
you wouldn't fit under.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If you read that, I read way too much, but you read this is a hot subject across the state. I'm not too sure if we're gonna tackle this thing, because it's, the General Assembly's, within 3 votes to turn it down, and Fishers have done things, and you read the information across the state. I'm not sure if you know which direction you're gonna go on this yet. I think you're a little early in the game. Have you had any trouble here?
We've got 2 properties that are out of compliance with the zoning ordinance of the
And
city of
difference,
Delphi.
what difference does that make if you having any trouble?
They could be fined.
That's a
For being out of
regulatory,
compliance.
that's a regulatory system, and sometimes that doesn't apply in small towns. You do what's good for the town, whether it fits the mold, fits the square.
We're trying to fit them into our.
So you're trying to regulate it.
Yeah.
Sir, you're trying to regulate something. That's what this council's trying to do, is regulate something else. If we didn't, they would say, it's fine for the community, bring people in, let's let it happen.
Even, we would still have to define it as a permissible use in one of the zones of the city of Delphi. Is the interpretation of the area planning commission is that because it's not a permitted use in the 11 or 12 within a U1 zone, that it's out of compliance. So to bring it out of compliance, we would have to define it, because even these don't fit the definition of bed and breakfast. Because they're not always owner occupied, and they don't provide breakfast as part of the fee.
But very few cities along the state have done anything about it yet. They're waiting to see what happens. It's a hot subject, Fisher, wasn't it? Really hot.
Was Mo's and Cease, were they notified about this meeting, or?
I talked to them before we submitted the last resolution to the area planning commission to ask for recommendations from the APC. So I don't think I told them that we were having this meeting, but they knew that we were trying to fit, or gonna work to try to fit Airbnbs into the zoning ordinance of the city of Delphi.
I'd like to hear from them. I'd like to hear, what they've experienced and what they have done so far and what they plan on doing, or what they think is gonna be the trends as it goes forward, by being someone that's already done, some of this. I mean, it's easy to sit there and look at things and think, well, this and this and this, but until you experience it, it's not always accurate to make those assumptions. I'd like to hear from them.
So you said that they're advertised, somebody would contact them and say, I want to stay at your place, they would have to go before the zoning board to ask for an exception?
Yes, ma'am. Which I know Mrs. Cease has, but the Board of Zoning Appeals required her to have an agreement with their neighbor because they have a shared drive. So our bed and breakfast ordinance requires, I believe, 2 off-street parking spaces. So they did it under the bed and breakfast definition, which I don't think this even meets because it's not necessarily owner occupied. They don't necessarily provide breakfast as part of the fee.
And I think that's why she is trying to go the Airbnb route, because I don't think she can, I think she's struggling to be able to comply with restrictions set forth by the Board of Zoning.
Yes.
So,
Which, I mean, if we wanted to allow Airbnbs within the city of Delphi, or properties like Airbnbs, in a U1 district without going before the Board of Zoning Appeals, we could do that. I mean, we could make that recommendation to the APC, have them review it, and give us a recommendation back. Now, whether we would want to subdivide it into categories, whether or not it's owner occupied, I think we would want a limitation on the number of days consecutively you can stay, so that we don't lump landlords' properties in with Airbnbs. So we would want that, but if that's how the council wants to go, where it's provided by right, within a U1 or U2 zone, I think we could do that.
if we table this until the December meeting, could we have those two at least here to discuss that with us?
Have them where?
To have them brought in, or invite them to have them come in and talk to us?
We could invite them. We could probably get Mrs. Cease, I don't know, with Mr. Mo's commuting from Chicago. He's normally only down here like every other weekend.
Even if he provided us something in writing, I mean, I don't think we want to subpoena them, just, invite them to come.
All right. Mackenzie, sorry, you wanted to add something?
I was just going to say, if you do proceed that route and you're unsure on definitions, you're unsure on certain regulations, you could just keep it extremely bare bones. Just allow it so that it's not a violation, but not put a lot of restrictions or definitions around it until things develop or council feels more comfortable making decisions, and that can get these folks in compliance if that's the goal.
And talk us through how to do that again.
Well, if you're wanting to make it to where these folks that meet this, whatever this definition that council defines, does not have to go to Board of Zoning Appeals anytime that they want to operate this way. Just keep it really general and say that City of Delphi allows this within city limits, and not define exactly the type of house, maybe a time on it because to separate it from landlords. But you wouldn't need to put square footage, you wouldn't need to put whether or not they serve breakfast as a fee, anything about the fees. You could kind of keep it general in that sense, just to bring them into compliance if you're not wanting to take that next step of really getting specific with it, which I would agree, it is extremely confusing, and every municipality seems to differ in their definitions. Even compiling the bed and breakfast ordinance, it was a challenge because every municipality defines it differently, so that's just an option.
So we could do that, bring that into, and that would bring those two people into compliance. And then we could take it from that point forward and work on, anything that we wanted to address at a
Yes.
later time, if we even wanted to address it.
Right, but, pursuant to an amendment. So if you have a really bare bones base that gets them into compliance, over time you can develop that to whatever you want it to look like. And if it's not working, of course, you have the option to repeal it.
I like that. What everybody else thinks, but I like